The idea of being pushed may have represented, again, the idea of focusing on the lesson, focusing on the idea that there is always a consequence of the choices that you make. In this case, to some degree, better that it was done with a spirit than with a living person, where the consequences might have been even more drastic. But by being able to actually feel the spirit physically push you, you may have been given a chance to change your behavior without it necessarily affecting a physical person who would be more affected by it than the spirit was. And the spirit in that sense may simply have been demonstrating something without necessarily taking it personally.
But generally, the fact that they're in spirit means that they will have certainly the capability of experiencing what you're saying at a higher level.
Yes, and again, they may not have experienced it personally at all. It may simply have been a lesson being taught.
Interesting. This person is saying, my grandfather can see ghosts for about 1 year now, usually at nighttime, sometimes in the afternoon, and almost every night. He doesn't want to sleep. He wants to chase them away. They look at him, but don't talk. When he tries to reach them, they press something on their chest and disappear. Who are they?
These are not ghosts. These are interdimensional beings. So the idea may be that he senses that they're from somewhere else. They may feel quite alien to him. He may not be comfortable around them, simply because he may not be comfortable with the differences that they represent. The fact that they're pressing their chests indicates to some degree that they're using a type of technology which a ghost would not need to do. A ghost would simply vanish. So this is more the behavior of interdimensional beings that are connected to that person and attempting perhaps to remind him of his connection to them, which he may not be in a place to acknowledge at this particular point because of whatever belief systems he's holding on to. But it might be a way of goading him into exploring these things rather than chasing them away.
So as people get older also, particularly let's say they're in the 5-year range of when they might pass or something like that, will this ability be more accessible if that person realizes it, to be able to connect or see ghosts and things like that?
If they realize, yes. It can happen, or it doesn't have to, but yes, it's quite possible that as you approach the idea of crossing the threshold from physical to non-physical reality, that your senses may start connecting to the other side, and you may be more acutely aware of the fact that other beings in spirit are connecting to you.
Could it potentially be similar to the idea of the way cats can be just sitting there and suddenly they're staring at watching something that appears to be from another dimension? Yeah. It might manifest that way?
Yes.
And how, if you haven't already answered this maybe in detail, how can an entity or ghost move things around and turn things on like a faucet or a stove?
Again, a densification of the vibration of the entity can bring them closer to the vibration of physical reality, and therefore within a range in which they can actually interact with denser physical material, because they have densified their own vibration to be sufficiently close to that frequency of physical reality to be able to manipulate physical objects.
Okay. This person has a question about ghosts who don't know they're ghosts. Can you elaborate on the people who pass who don't know they're ghosts? And does this happen to animals too? What is the best ceremony or blessing we can do to guide them and honor them in a way that assists them towards their highest good? And what does your society do to honor your loved ones once they've been elevated?
It is extremely rare that animals would experience that. extremely rare and for very specific reasons only. The idea is, again, if someone has a certain belief system that is in denial about the existence of an afterlife, it may be strong enough to prevent them from realizing that they're dead, but not for very, very long in terms of the idea of time as you know it. Because they will always have assistance from the other side to realize that their condition has changed and that they are capable of moving forward. So it's a temporary thing that can be helped both from the non-physical and the physical side if you connect to a spirit and encourage them to look around and explore and understand that their frequency has changed, that they've gone into a non-material world, so to speak. Again, this is the original purpose of what has been misunderstood and devolved into the concept of exorcism. It's simply ghost psychology, where you understand that someone is maybe having a difficult time because of their earthly belief systems in crossing over fully. But again, this is still, especially in this day and age, relatively rare. The reason why people may interact with ghosts in many cases is far beyond the idea now of the ghosts themselves not knowing that they're dead. So there are many other reasons and purposes for these interactions or for people perceiving them. Messages and so on that need to be delivered. Yes, a little bit of unfinished business, but again, this doesn't really take very long. Although sometimes a psychically sensitive person can help them with this by delivering messages to the living that allows the ghosts, the spirits, to know that the message has been delivered so they can move on. But again, in the overall population, this is relatively rare. But animals have very little reason to experience the idea. Perhaps an animal that has been severely physically abused might experience this momentarily. But again, an animal is much more connected to the idea of spirit and much more capable of immediately awakening into their natural state. Again, they may stick around for the purpose of interacting with a human that may need their assistance or their reflection, but that has nothing to do specifically with the animal's ability to know that it is dead.
And if some spirits don't realize that they've died, did they experience life review upon death?
In many cases, no. Or they may have experienced it as a dream, thinking that they're still alive and simply dreaming, or daydreaming, or hallucinating. But in some cases, no. They're not yet at that threshold where they have the awareness to recognize what it is they're experiencing as a life review. They may simply think that they're sort of stuck on a memory.
So basically, you can delay your life review by refusing to move towards the light or move into spirit fully?
Again, this is relatively rare, but yes, to some degree it's possible. The examples of the idea you call near-death experience and fully dying provide an illustration for this. Because the idea is that when people have a near-death experience, when they're not going to remain dead, they will usually have the life review sooner than a person who actually dies, because then they don't have to rush, because they're going to come back. They're not going to come back, so they don't have to have the life review right away. But the people that are going to return in a near-death experience will usually have some degree of life review more quickly than those who truly pass on.
Interesting. And what about those individuals that perpetrate great evil on earth in the sense of murder, mayhem, etc.? And I know that you had referred one time to Hitler having to sort of be put on ice in order to, I guess, integrate.
An energetic buffer is created to allow the being to go through what may seem to be the traumatic experience of the life review, because remember, in life review, there are no barriers. The cause and effect are all happening within you, and you experience everything from every point of view, including the people that were affected by the choices and the actions that you took. So you're experiencing those things as if you are that person being affected by your choices. And to a soul, that can be to some degree a traumatic experience, especially at the level that certain individuals may have perpetrated those kinds of negative actions. So a kind of cocoon or buffer is created. This is what is meant by being put on ice, to allow the soul to absorb these experiences and learn from them in a way that will benefit them so that they can make different choices from that point forward.
And when you say that the cause and effect, suppose they're in a position where they are telling other people to do things, and further down the chain, the actual actions that are so heinous are taking place.
Everything is connected. Everything is connected. Remember, time and space are illusions to some degree, even though they're real as experiences. But any ripple whatsoever that has any kind of an effect is experienced by those who have any connection to it, to whatever degree they have the connection to it.
So in the average person's transition and life review, they will experience the ripple effect of everything that they've done in their entire life, or only the ones that are really relevant for a learning experience?
Everything, but the ones that are truly relevant for a learning experience that is specific to them will stand out in certain ways. But beings experience literally every single second of the physical life. Again, some things will stand out more than others, but that doesn't mean they don't experience them. Even the absence of something that is the result of some action they took will be experienced by them.
And yet, since the timeline for things to be experienced while you're in spirit as opposed to being physical is different, what kind of a time does it take, or how much time does it take, in a sense, to go through a life review?
As your Einstein said, it's all relative. What to you may seem to be something that took years, may be experienced in the blink of an eye to the spirit in a life review. But it may seem to them that they're reliving the entire life as well. You have to understand that time is a funny thing, because it is a subjective idea and a relative idea. So the things that stand out as important may feel like they're taking more time to a spirit because of their importance and the need to focus on them, when in fact it may really be taking almost no time at all. So it's really completely subjective, and you cannot really make a measurement between physical and non-physical reality as to the amount of time that some experience actually takes. It's all absolutely subjective in spirit.
And also the idea that you're multi-functioning, so can many aspects of the life be happening simultaneously in your review, or it would appear more linear?
Again, it depends on what it is you need to focus on, what it is that gives you the lesson that you're attempting to extract. It can be experienced absolutely in the blink of an eye on every level simultaneously, or it can seem to stretch out depending on what you need.
And for those beings that choose to incarnate into what will ultimately be some sort of evil iconic spirit or evil iconic person, a figurehead that then wreaks havoc and destruction upon others, why would a spirit choose that? Or do they know going in that they're going to go through all these things you've just discussed as a result of making the choice to be that individual?
Like any question of this nature, it depends upon the being, and it depends upon the purpose. There is the possibility that beings, as you know, can forget who they are, can get caught up in certain things in physical reality that prevent them from having more awareness and allowing them to act out in negative ways. It can also go through the entire spectrum, all the way up to, I'm going to play this role because of what it's going to do to awaken the consciousness of those who are affected by it. It really depends on the situation. It depends on the being. These are individual things, and you have to, again, as always, take it on a case-by-case basis.
So, for example, with Hitler, did he know before he came that he was going to play that role?
This is a tricky question to answer because there are so many levels to the being itself, a part of which, a small part of which, your history knew as Hitler in your particular parallel reality. So again, I can say yes and no.
Okay.